welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode number 60, and the title of this episode is Moving On to Plan B for the Economic Collapse. And we can see from everything going on with Benghazi, with the war in Syria, Iran, the Boston bombing, things haven't been going all too well for what they planned on. So they're going to have to do something to get us into war and move us in there quickly, because right now, from all the polls and from everything about what's going on in America, nobody cares about Syria or Iran. Actually, I've been asking people, nobody even realizes what's going on over there. Now, they're going to have to do something a little different, and they're going to have to change their tactics from plan A and go to plan B, and we'll discuss this at the end after all the news today. But let's get started with the economic collapse current news here. Now, there was an article that says the House passes Pay China First Act. I mean, you can really tell that something is really wrong when our government passes an act that basically is telling everyone when the foreign nations come, they get paid first, and then whatever we have left over, America, that's what you get. So basically, the Republican-controlled United States House of Representatives approved a bill on Thursday that would require the government to begin paying back foreign nations before spending funds on domestic items. Now, because the government would have to settle up debt with bondholders first, foreign nations like China, that holds trillions in bonds, would be the first to receive payment. And I mean, for them to pass something like this really shows you something. It really shows to me, whenever you have to start laying out how you're going to pay off your debt if something happens, because this, to me right now, this bill right here is telling me that we're going into default. Because why would they have to pass this if something wasn't going to happen? So they're already setting it up and saying, okay, this is what's going to happen when we default. We're going to have whatever we have. We've got to pay them. And they already know it's coming. That's why the Fed is buying $45 billion worth of bonds, $40 billion worth of real estate, because that's real hard assets. That's why that's why the Fed's giving all the money to the banks. The banks are investing in gold right now because they know what's coming. The government of the United States is going to default, and they're telling us from this right here that this is going to happen, because you wouldn't be setting all this up if everything's okay. President Obama came out and said everything's fine, the economy's on an uptick, but why would they need this? Because they know something is wrong. They know something is up. Like, why would they need the FDIC Bank of England for bail-ins? Why would all the countries around the world, Switzerland, Canada, Australia, Ireland, why would they all, Cyprus, the European nations, why would they all have bail-in documents? Why would they change everything? Because they all know what's coming. They all know it. They just don't want to tell anyone else what's coming. So, let's move on here. Now, it's funny how we hear many different stories about, Syria and about who's supplying weapons. And, I mean, if you read the mainstream media, they tell us that, Russia's making new deals of new weapons and they're going to be selling it. Russia comes out and says, no, we're just finishing up the contract that we already have with Syria supplying them weapons, and there are no new contracts that we have. So there is so much propaganda going on right now to convince the American people that much more is going on over there than what's really happening. And you can see that a lot of things that America is claiming is not being backed up by the UN. For example, the chemical weapons that they thought if they came out and they said, the Syrian government is using chemical weapons on their people, Americans would jump up and say, "Oh my God, we have to save them, we have to go, and we have to help them." But the American people don't care. They're sleeping. They're too they're they're too involved in their own lives. They don't care about Syria. They don't care about the war over there. The only reason why the government cares about that is because of money, because of central banking, because of them not using the dollar as the reserve currency over there. That is the only reason. The rest of us, we don't care. We don't want to be involved. But that blew up in their face because the UN came out and said, no, it wasn't the Syrian government, it was the rebels. And, then, of course, the United States government is like, what? No, 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 it is the Syrian government. And now we have today the United Kingdom coming out saying, oh, no, no, the U.S. is right, it is the Syrian government. So you could see what's happening here. They're losing their footing on war. And this is not good in a certain way, and I'm going to tell you why later. But they are losing the fight of bringing the war to this area because the American people are just not into it. Now, it looks like U.S. alerts 2 elite military units to be on standby over deteriorating Libyan situation. So basically, it looks like things are happening in Libya, and I guess the people there don't like the new central bank and the new puppet regime that's set up there, and they want their country back. And basically, the article goes on to say, earlier today, news crossed the wire that the British Embassy was pulling all non-essential staff from its Libya embassy. With the release of this warning, given the security implications of the ongoing political uncertainty, the British Embassy is temporarily withdrawing a small number of staff, mainly those who work in support of government ministries, which have been affected by recent developments. Moments ago, perhaps in an attempt to avoid humiliation by Hillary Clinton and the Benghazi fiasco, the U.S. military has alerted 2 elite military units in Europe to be on standby if needed to respond to a deteriorating security situation in Tripoli. So we can see that something is happening here, and basically that goes on to say we are repositioning assets in the region that could respond if necessary, a senior military official told Fox News. So we can see things are heating up. The American people are not into wars. The people in Libya do not like the central bank or the new government there, and things are starting to break down. But again, they need the support of the American people to go into war, and they don't have it right now. And another article goes on to say, U.S. prepares war with Syria as Washington-backed al-Qaeda rebels lose ground. The Syria armed forces are basically winning the fight. And there are rebel forces that are backed by, or actually the mercenary forces that are sent there through the United States and Israel, are losing ground. And this is a tough thing because if they continue to lose ground, there go the war efforts. So they need to do something. They need to get the people of the United States basically all up in arms, angry, pissed off. Something has to happen. Something big soon has to happen. Okay, let's just move on for a second to come to gun control, and then we'll come back to what Plan B is, and this has to do with Syria. It has to do with getting America into war. Basically, Missouri legislator nullifies all federal gun control measures by a veto-proof majority. So that's good that they're doing this, and the Second Amendment is intact, and basically every state should be doing this. Now, there was an interesting article that says the U.S. Senate declares the entire USA to be a battleground. A bill passed late last night, 93-7, that declares the United States of America a battleground. What this means is that the U.S. military can now operate with impunity and grant the U.S. military the unchecked power to arrest, detain, interrogate, and even assassinate United States citizens with impunity. And this just goes along with the NDAA, the Patriot Act, the Miranda exception. It all fits together. And also the executive orders that the president can call a national emergency at any time without the backup of Congress. So this all plays into this completely. Now, on this page on the X22 Reports site, I put this video of where it looks like the police are desensitizing using training with practice fighting angry parents. I mean, it doesn't even make sense what we're doing here. And, the idea was to test the response of police and firefighters to a situation that was right out of the news headlines. And they're talking about, these angry parents taking over a school at gunpoint, requiring smart intervention. When have we ever seen this before? I mean, what are they talking about? News headlines of angry parents taking over the school and they have to come in. I mean, it looks like they're going through a training to get us used to them coming in with guns, just like in Boston with martial law, just like the tests they have done in other schools about that there's shooters inside. They didn't notify anyone, and the police just storm in and they run their tests. I think, and also with Miami and Houston when they had the helicopters flying over and they were doing gunshots in the air. Things are happening and going on right now. Now, this week I was tracking cyber attacks, and a couple things happen here and there, but nothing big at all. But what's a strange occurrence? I mean, Syria went into a blackout. Internet went dead. They caught these 8 people that were doing cyber attack crimes. And if you notice, these things are in the news, and people are starting to become aware. But I noticed that strange articles, not strange, but articles that are coming out now that we need to brace for more cyber attacks. There was one that said community banks brace for cyber attacks. U.S. intelligence officials have also issued warnings about cyber attacks as assaults have crippled the online and mobile bank platforms at banks such as Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, and Regions Financial. So they're telling community banks now to also brace for these cyber attacks. And there was another one that says U.S. warns of cyber attacks on water and power. The U.S. government on Thursday warned of a heightened risk of cyber attacks that could disrupt the control systems of U.S. companies providing critical services such as electricity and water. Officials are highly concerned about increasing hostility against U.S. critical infrastructure organizations. According to the warning, which was released by the Department of Homeland Security on a computer network accessible only to authorized industry and government users, adversary intent extends beyond intellectual property theft to include the use of cyber to disrupt control processes. Now, they're linking this now to Iran. U.S. intelligence officials have said they think those attacks were linked to the Iranian government. And DHS is also coming out saying that it's linked to the Middle East and particularly Iran. So they are building this up because they need to do something, and do something quite quickly, because we are losing ground. I mean, the government and the central bankers are losing ground out in Iran, Syria, and this whole area where they want to start a war. Now, they tried Plan A. They tried having the rebels go in. They tried the chemical weapons. They're trying everything they possibly can think of. They tried the Boston bombing. Plan A has failed. No one, they can see it. These stories don't, gain any traction. The American people are so asleep and so dazed and so far into their own lives that they're not even noticing what's going on out there. So they're realizing this and they need to do something else. And the only way to do this is to really shock the American people. And I believe they're going to need to do this soon. Again, either with a setting off bombs around the country, like we saw in Boston, either with all different type of devices or small little nukes, or as they've been continually talking about, some type of cyber attack. And I do believe that we are still going to see this. It is still being set up as an event. You have to remember, coming in a couple of weeks, we have this drill in Dorney Park in May 13th. We also have the NYPD doing another drill in the subway systems with chemical weapons. Now, in the news, we know they talked about chemical weapons with Syria. So you have the New York area, and if they get hit with some type of chemical weapon disbursement, they can blame that on Iran or Syria. Dorney Park, there could be small bombs that are set off in crowds of people. Now, they might try these things first to see, does it work? Can we get the people to go to war? If we blame it on, Al-Qaeda, Syria, Iran, let's see if we can get them, moving. If that doesn't work, they're going to have to go for the big one. And that could be the cyber attack. Again, they've been talking about the electrical grid. They've been talking about the water systems. They've been talking about the banks. And that might just be the big one. Or they might skip those other events. It might just go right for the big one, because it depends on how much time they have and what they need to do. I mean, but something is definitely coming, and they're setting it up because they need to get the ball rolling on this. And this is the only way that I believe they can do this. There is no other way. How would we get to war with these countries? How would they do it? There's no other conceivable way. I mean, yes, they can plant bombs all across America, and they can, small nukes all over the place. That was a report that there are setting up small nukes all over, and they can say that's from the Syria or Iran or North Korea. The chemical weapons, they could do that. They could try another small bombing in an amusement park. But to really bring it home, I mean, look what they had to do to get us into Iraq. They had to bring down the World Trade Center. All the reports that I'm seeing and everything that I'm seeing is that this cyber attack, they're continually building the news stories for this huge cyber attack. And it's funny, on the People, someone said, did you see Red Dawn, the newer one, not the older one with Patrick Swayze, the newer one, where they used some type of cyber attack on the power grid. They knocked out all the electricity, and the North Koreans were able to invade America. Now, the same thing can happen here, and I believe that power outage in 2003 on the Eastern Seaboard, that was a test. That was the test to see, can they do it? How do the people react? And that's what they're going to do. And I truly believe that this is the direction they're going to go into, because they wouldn't have all these stories coming out warning us and trying to brainwash the American people that this is coming, because they could do a lot with a cyber attack. They can knock out the electricity for weeks. They can drain the banks of money, which helps a lot with their bail-in. It also helps blaming it on another country for the economic collapse. They can get people so angry not having food, water, electric over weeks, because there was one report that said if they knocked out the transformers, it could be out for something like 6 to 9 months or something like that, or 18 months, whatever it was. So that's a very long time. Even if they did it for 2 weeks, it would be a mess here. But there is something coming. This is Plan B. They're not going to stop. We're going to definitely see something happen, and we all just need to be prepared. So listen, everyone, thank you very much. Be safe, be well, and especially be prepared. Thanks.